I'm glad I'm the age I am and that I was the age then. But you couldn't do what we did today.
Why?
Money?
Carol Burnett, the woman who has spent a lifetime making America laugh, is now asking her fans to brace themselves for something other than a punchline. The 92-year-old might seem great for her age, but she is finally breaking her silence about her recent absence from the limelight. The truth is that the pace she once kept is no longer possible, and she just doesn't want to dance around it anymore. One of the last remaining giants of television's golden age is finally choosing to walk away. But what drove her to it? Let's find out. Chapter 1. Carol Burnett's Final Curtain Call. For decades, Carol Burnett has been the definition of warmth and joy. The Carol Burnett Show might have ended in 1978, but that wasn't the end of her presence or relevance in pop culture. If anything, it marked the beginning of her timeless humor. Carol was the kind of comedian who made every generation laugh, and that's not an easy feat. Even after entering her 90s, she remained as funny and likable as ever, to the point where you had to wonder, where does she find the energy to keep going? That's the thing, though. No matter what she was going through behind the scenes, Carol kept smiling. And she kept other people smiling too. And that's exactly why what she is admitting now hits so hard. Carol has shared that the chapter of her life that she is entering now looks way different than before. And it comes with limits she just can't ignore. Of course, social media was immediately flooded with concern after the statement, with only one question on everyone's minds: is this Carol Burnett saying goodbye? In a recent interview promoting Season 2 of Palm Royale, Carol has acknowledged that while her spirit is still strong, her energy is not what it once was. The long days, the travel, even extended public appearances now come at a cost. For years, fans assumed her quieter presence was simply retirement by choice. A legend finally enjoying her well-earned rest. But the truth is more complex than that. The American star chose to be completely honest with her fans in the moment. And when asked if she had any other acting roles in the pipeline, she smiled and said something no one wanted to hear. The comedian admitted that Palm Royale will probably be her last on-camera role, her last hurrah, as she put it, with her signature humor. Carol Burnett joined Palm Royale in its very first season, which aired in 2024, and her casting immediately felt symbolic. The series, set in the glamorous world of 1960s Palm Beach high society, gave Carol a role unlike anything she'd played before. She played Norma D'Agostino, a sharp-tongued, wealthy dowager whose influence quietly controls the social elite from behind the scenes. Norma is powerful, intimidating, and often hilarious in the most restrained way, allowing Carol to showcase a more subtle, dramatic kind of comedy that the public hadn't seen from her before. Now, watching the legend command the screen at this stage in her life definitely felt monumental. And the fact that this might be the last time we see her on screen gives it even more emotional weight. Carol has explained that at her age, she isn't really concerned with chasing the next big project. In fact, she feels like her career is complete. After Burnett's iconic guest role on Better Call Saul Season 6, she wasn't really expecting to land another role. In fact, she was ready to throw in the towel back then. But then came Palm Royale, and the actress thought that it was the perfect ending note to her magnanimous career. The perfect cherry on top. The announcement is bittersweet, because on one hand, Carol isn't stepping away because of exhaustion or something negative being at play. She knows that now is the time for her to leave the limelight because she is finally content with where she is and what she has achieved. Carol even described herself as feeling like a kid in a candy store, laughing about how the Palm Royale cast had become her new best friends, at a time in life when most people assume everything is already behind you. And that speaks volumes about the kind of respect people have for her. The thing is, this moment, it's just about stepping back. It actually shows how Carol has become increasingly intentional about the way her life's work is going to be remembered. And that intention became impossible to ignore when she made one of the most quietly powerful moves of her entire career. Chapter 2: A Legacy Rooted in Humility. In November 2025, Carol announced that she had donated every major award she has ever received, which add up to more than 140 in total, to UCLA. Not just a few trophies, every Emmy, every Golden Globe, her Tony, her Grammy, her Peabody Awards, even deeply personal memorabilia from the Carol Burnett show, including original costume sketches, handwritten notes, and rare keepsakes from the height of her fame. She decided to donate it all. Of course, it was confusing to a lot of people. But to those who know Carol, it made perfect sense. This wasn't just the comedian's share of spring cleaning. Carol's career has spanned 7 decades, and she knows the importance of placing that legacy somewhere permanent, someplace that would outlive her. And this isn't about nostalgia. It's about using her work to inspire others to move ahead with the same drive and determination. Carol also endowed a new scholarship at UCLA's School of Theater, Film, and Television, ensuring that future performers, especially those without financial safety nets, would have the same chance she once did. After spending so many years in the entertainment industry, it's amazing to see Carol still being so passionate and invested in nurturing art. But there's a story here. Carol Burnett is a proud UCLA alumna who attended the university to study theater after graduating from Hollywood High. But her path to success almost ended before it began. Growing up poor and raised by her grandmother in a tiny apartment, college felt like an impossible dream. Money was scarce, opportunities even scarcer. But Carol has always believed that sometimes life intervenes when you're brave enough to take a step forward. When she felt a pull toward UCLA, she had no idea how she would afford it until something extraordinary happened. One day, Carol discovered an envelope in her mailbox containing a single $50 bill from an anonymous donor. At the time, tuition for a semester at UCLA was just $43, just enough to get her through the door. That mysterious gift changed everything. Carol enrolled as a journalism major, simply grateful to be there at all. But fate had other plans. As part of her coursework, she was required to take an acting class. And in that classroom, she didn't just learn a new skill. She discovered her calling. Now, she wants to give others the same chance she received from a stranger's kindness. However, for Carol, legacy has never been just about institutions or awards. It's also about passing wisdom forward while she still can. Chapter 3: Carol Burnett's Rise. That's why her recent appearance on the hit HBO show Hacks struck such a deep emotional chord with viewers, even though it lasted only a few minutes. Carol appeared as herself in a quiet, understated scene opposite Jean Smart during a chance meeting in a doctor's office. Just 2 women who understand what it means to carry a lifetime of performance on their shoulders. In the scene, Jean Smart's character asks Carol for advice about stage fright, something that still haunts her, even after decades in the spotlight. Carol's response was simple, tender, and devastatingly honest. "I would pick one person in the audience," she said, "and I would do the show just for them." Then, with the warmth only she can deliver, Carol told the other woman that she would be wonderful on stage. For longtime fans, it didn't feel like acting. It felt like Carol speaking directly to the next generation of performers, artists, and dreamers who wonder how much longer they can keep going. Behind the scenes, the creators of Hacks revealed that Carol wasn't brought in for a cameo just for nostalgia's sake. They had wanted her for years, but waited until the moment felt right, until the story could honor her without exploiting her. The show itself is about female comedians who didn't always receive the recognition they deserved, and Carol's presence meant everything. In fact, if it weren't for Carol Burnett's legacy, a show like Hacks might not even have existed, and that's what gives the cameo its true power. To fully understand why this moment feels so emotional, you have to look back at what Carol Burnett actually survived to get here. Because her career wasn't built on luck alone. Long before she became synonymous with sketch comedy, Carol Burnett was just another struggling performer trying to survive in New York City. She arrived with ambition, talent, and almost no money. There were times when she couldn't afford proper meals, sleeping on friends' couches, scraping by on whatever small jobs she could find. Rejection was constant. Casting directors didn't know where to place her. She wasn't glamorous or edgy enough. She wasn't what television thought it wanted, but she had something that couldn't be taught. She understood timing. She understood vulnerability. And most importantly, she understood how to make people feel seen through laughter. That's what eventually landed her on The Gary Moore Show, where America began to notice that this woman was fearless with her humor. She wasn't afraid to look foolish or cry mid-sketch. In fact, her whole act was about letting people see through the cracks. That fearlessness would later become the foundation of The Carol Burnett Show, a show that should never have worked on paper. At the time, variety shows were dominated by men. Networks didn't believe a woman could anchor an entire hour of live comedy every week. And yet, Carol fought for it anyway. She demanded creative control. She insisted on live audiences and surrounding herself with performers she trusted. Not just stars, but collaborators who brought genuine value. When the show premiered in 1967, no one could have predicted how deeply it would embed itself into American culture. What made The Carol Burnett Show different was the comedian's unfiltered approach. She wasn't concerned about achieving perfection. She would laugh it off if the sketches went wrong, and the show's infamous bloopers became one of its most defining elements. Carol's honesty, the way she embraced her mistakes, gave the show an emotional weight that other performers just couldn't tap into. From there, Carol's career was only on an upward trajectory. However, the 2000s brought a whole new kind of battle for her. Chapter 4. Life Behind the Scenes. Carol's daughter Carrie was diagnosed with lung and brain cancer in 2001, and that significantly affected the comedian's life and career. The disease began in Carrie's lungs and later spread to her brain, taking her life far too soon in 2002. Years later, Carol admitted that the pain never truly fades. The actress shared that not a day goes by without her thinking of her daughter, who was also her creative partner and deepest confidant. But their bond was strengthened through hardship as much as love. As a teenager, Carrie struggled with addiction, and Carol made the agonizing decision to put her daughter into rehab, even knowing it would cause resentment. "I had to love her enough to let her hate me," Carol later admitted. Carrie eventually got sober at 17, and the two grew closer than ever, rebuilding their relationship piece by piece. When Carrie passed away, Carol was left devastated, admitting there were days she didn't want to get out of bed. But even in her darkest moment, she found ways to keep going, like finishing a play they had started together and finding comfort in what she believes were signs of Carrie's presence. From rain on opening night to flowers Carrie loved appearing at just the right moment. It's a loss you never get over, only learn to live with. But Carrie wasn't the only child Carol Burnett fought for, worried over, and loved fiercely. Motherhood, for Carol, was never simple or polished. It was complicated, painful at times, and deeply human. And while Carrie's story became the most public, Carol's other two daughters grew up navigating their own paths, often in the shadow of extraordinary fame, and sometimes in the middle of very complicated family dynamics. Her middle daughter, Jody Hamilton, took a quieter route. Born in 1967, Jody grew up during the height of the Carol Burnett show, but Carol was determined not to turn her children into extensions of her own success. She famously refused to place her daughters on television just because she could, insisting they earn their own paths rather than inherit hers. Jody eventually found her footing behind the camera, becoming a film and television producer and later a podcast host. She also worked closely with her mother, producing retrospectives that celebrated Carol's early career, including a major special that aired while Carrie was battling cancer. Those close to the family say Jody became a steady presence during some of Carol's most difficult years, helping keep things grounded when everything else felt fragile. Carol's youngest daughter, Erin Hamilton, followed a more turbulent road. Born in 1968, Erin grew up mesmerized by her mother's world, once describing it as simply watching Mom play dress-up. She pursued music instead of comedy, becoming a professional singer and performer, and for a time built a promising career of her own. But like both Carrie and Carol's own parents before them, Erin struggled with addiction, a cycle Carol has been heartbreakingly honest about. In 2020, Carol and her husband made the painful decision to seek temporary guardianship of Erin's son, not to punish, but to protect. In a rare public statement, Carol explained that the move was about stability, safety, and hope for recovery. Judgment. What's striking is how openly Carol has spoken about these struggles, especially given the era she came from. She never pretended her family was perfect. Through it all, Carol remained a mother first, even when it meant making decisions that broke her own heart. Looking back now, it's impossible to separate Carol Burnett's comedy from her motherhood. The empathy she brought to her performances didn't come from nowhere. It was forged through loving her daughters fiercely, surviving unimaginable loss, and continuing to show up even when life demanded more than felt fair. And perhaps that's why her legacy doesn't feel manufactured or distant. It feels earned, because behind the laughter was always a woman doing her best to hold her family together, even when the world only heard the jokes. She carries this level of professionalism to this day, when many legends of her stature really wouldn't, because they would expect a certain level of privilege thanks to everything they have achieved. But Carol just isn't that kind of person. Chapter 5. Carol's Impact on Hollywood. Her Palm Royale co-star Kristen Wiig has actually admitted that working with Carol is a dream come true. Wiig has admitted it's hard to even put into words what working with Carol meant to her, explaining that their connection went far beyond the script. There was no intimidation, no hierarchy, just this genuine trust that allowed everyone to take creative risks without fear. Carol made it clear that she wasn't one to throw tantrums or give anyone a hard time on set. Even at 92, she was more than happy to share the screen with a bunch of other talented performers. She made it a point to talk to every crew member, swap stories, and treat everyone as an equal. Wiig shared that during long shooting days, the cast would look for Carol between scenes just because she would always be in good spirits, no matter how tired she was. Her presence served as the best kind of motivation. And Kristen Wiig isn't the only performer whose life was quietly changed by crossing paths with Carol Burnett. Years earlier, that same generosity sparked an unexpected friendship with Jane Lynch, one that began on the set of Glee and grew into something far more personal. Back in 2010, Carol appeared as Doris, the blunt and hilariously intimidating mother of Lynch's Sue Sylvester, a role that instantly became iconic. But what most people didn't realize at the time was that the appearance happened not because Carol was asked, but because she asked. Carol personally reached out to Ryan Murphy and told him she wanted to play in his sandbox. She then completely trusted his vision enough to let him choose whatever role he wanted for her. That single choice says everything about who Carol Burnett is, even at the height of her legendary status. She wasn't chasing prestige or screen time. She wanted to be part of a show she genuinely enjoyed and work with people whose work she respected. The result was a musical moment between Carol and Jane Lynch that felt less like a guest spot and more like a celebration. Two performers from different eras meeting on equal ground. Carol even helped choose the song they would sing together, making the moment all the more special. What followed surprised even Jane Lynch. The one-off appearance turned into a lasting friendship that extended far beyond the screen. Living in the same area, the two stayed in touch, meeting for brunch, showing up for each other's milestones, and supporting one another quietly over the years. Jane later attended Carol's hand and footprint ceremony at the TCL Chinese Theater, a full-circle moment for Carol, who once worked as an usher in that very building. When Carol placed her hands in the cement, she admitted she suddenly felt like a little girl again, remembering the legends she once admired and realizing she had become one herself. Carol Burnett is a star for the ages, and everything she has done is a testament to that. What do you think about her journey and her decision to step away now? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.